Memory transcription subject. Governor Tava of the Venal Republic. Date. Standardized Human Time. November 29th, 2136. Venal resources were spread thin, with millions of rescues taxing our resources. Volunteers worked to exhaustion, and human refugees chipped in as much as anyone. The Predator's assistance was appreciated, but we had to monitor their interactions with the former cattle. I was certain they didn't mean any harm. However, the primates often didn't realize how terrifying their basic mannerisms could be. All it took was one Terran reacting with aggression or lifting their mask at the wrong time. If their secret got out within this facility, I could imagine how the rescues would take the news. Would a former exterminator like Glim accept that our closest ally was a predator race? Could Heisey grasp the Federation's misdeeds after studying our idyllic relations in history? "Hey, just so you know, 1 of every 10 races are flesh-eaters," I imagine myself saying. "Oh, and our neighbours are predators. We're allied in their war against the Federation, with the Arxor too." This was a delicate situation, regardless of outside intervention. A large chunk of these Venal were raised in captivity and lacked any understanding of our modern society. Their language and higher thinking functions were rudimentary at best. The Arxor hadn't exposed them to other aliens or offered any welfare services. "Governor, it's your move," Sarah said. Heisey was laying on her stomach, inspecting the Jenga tower. The former historian had come out of her shell. It was good to see her taking an interest in the Terran's culture. Noah and Sarah kept their answers vague, which failed to sate her curiosity. The humans brought this block game with them today, and used it as an introduction to their recreation. My claw tapped a loose piece near the center, and I coaxed it out of its spot. The tower quivered a bit, which sparked my nerves. The Venal rescues leaned in with interest, alertness in their eyes. Satisfied that the structure would hold, I set the plank atop it. Noah rubbed his hands together. "Wonderfully done. My turn." "Dear stars!" Glim flinched back and shot the human a wary glance. How did your voice go that deep, Noah?" I have a bit of a cough," the ambassador muttered, clearing his throat, making it very throaty. "I apologize." Noah avoided turning toward Glim, which would indicate binocular vision. The Predator's emotions were invisible under his mask, but the Venal exterminator's confusion was apparent. Male human speech had a growling texture, which added weight to their voices. This was in stark contrast to our squeaky pitch. The UN ambassador jabbed his hand forward with no tact, and yanked a piece from the bottom. The Jenga tower toppled over, crashing to the floor. I suspected Noah had lost the game on purpose to distract Glim. The astronaut excused himself and sped out of the room. He realized how close he was to blowing his cover. Glim tilted his head. "You Gaians are a strange species, Sarah. Noah did not seem sick to me this entire time." "Ah, Noah tries to play tough. I bet he's doctored himself up on cough syrup," the Terran scientist responded. "Something about you bothers me. It might just be that I can't read you. If you aren't comfortable taking your masks off, I'd like to at least see an anatomical diagram of your species." "I'll look into acquiring that for you." "Will you?" That tone. What are you implying, Glim? The male Venal pinned his ears back and swished his tail with irritation. I feared that he'd already guessed the Gaians were predators. However, the fact that he was irked rather than afraid suggested he might not have the answers yet. The former exterminator's attitude was worsening by the day, though. "It's positive that his spirit hasn't been crushed, but he's becoming a problem. Maybe he needs to be isolated from humans." "I heard from my family for the first time in years, yet you're limiting contact to pre-recorded messages. You won't let us watch TV for entertainment or have access to the internet," Glim growled. "You avoid every question we ask you. There's something you don't want us to know." Sarah raised her hands. "That's not fair." "This isn't fair. I'm still in captivity in my home here with my own people. Dodgy aliens seem to be running the show. You won't even let us go outside to get a breath of fresh air." Sci was listening in silence. "Sarah, the museum. I want to visit." Alarm coursed through my veins as I knew we couldn't honor their requests. Humans appeared in every form of media, including fiction, and were a popular subject on our internet. Outside of these walls, Glim and Sci would encounter Terran refugees. Millions of them remained on Venlo Prime, so they could be walking around unmasked anywhere. Sarah adjusted her facial garb. "I'm sorry if you feel that our restrictions are unfair. We have no idea what your timetable is to readjust, and we'd like to take things slowly. Better safe than sorry." "Sensory overload might awaken negative emotions and slow down your recovery. Discussion of the war is everywhere too," I chimed in. "Maybe you two recover faster than others, but several of your counterparts are shattered. Our goals are set with the average Venlo in mind." Sci narrowed her eyes. "How did you even free us anyways, Tava? Why would the Greys let us go?" "The Gaians negotiated your release. What could the Gaians have that the Arxer would want?" "Strength." Noah's voice rumbled behind me. "Resources." Glim's pupil snapped back to the doorway. Noah returned with a bowl of fruit and made a point of grabbing a piece. He raised his full face mask just enough to eat the food, though his canines were still obscured. The two Fenlil studied his furless chin and his snack choice. The exterminator seemed to relax a little. Consuming plants should halt predator suspicions for now. The Terran ambassador offered the fruit to the Venlil, who snagged a few pieces for themselves. He waved a berry-picking hand and ushered the rescues back to their room. It was a clear attempt to avoid further questions. We had to find a way to give them some of what they wanted. Sci hugged Sarah as the scientist tucked her into bed. The female predator patted the Venlil gently, returning the affectionate gesture. The historian had no clue who her caretaker was. Compassion was a trait we once reserved for prey. Until we met humans, we assumed predators were incapable of empathy. Glim shied away when Noah tried to adjust his blanket. The exterminator's skeptical look had intensified following the ambassador's answer about the Arxor. Strength the Greys would respect was something to be feared, and not a quality prey should possess. Likewise, the only resources that interested the Dominion was food. "What did you mean by strength and resources?" the male rescue stuttered. Noah withdrew to the doorway. "We defend ourselves, and we're proactive about it. We can find a scientific solution to anything, manufacture anything, even the unsavory stuff the Arxor want." "The Arxor want cattle to eat and killing tools." "We did what was needed to get you back. We're going to protect the Venlil from now on." Sci whined. "You can't protect us from them. Nobody can. You're naive." Noah shoved his hands into his pockets, but pride exuded from his posture. There was a hunter's grace in his stride, the way he strutted, arching his spine, asserted dominance. Even with the mask on, I could sense his vicious snarl. The human wouldn't stand for Earth's prowess being called into question. "Oh, Sci, we already beat the Arxor once. The Federation's only victory in hundreds of years was because of us," Noah stated. "Have some faith." Sarah shook her head, slashing her hand in front of her throat. I scurried up to him and tugged at his wrist. My beloved needed to adjust his behavior because that speech wasn't prey-like at all. Usually Noah was more sensitive to our sensibilities. Perhaps it was Glim's profession, goading him into boastfulness. I dragged the human down the hallway, out of earshot of the rescues. Noah allowed himself to be maneuvered. There was no way I could move him without his cooperation. After checking my periphery to see if either Venlil followed us, I took a deep breath. It was important that I used a hushed voice to avoid prying ears. "Why would you tell them that?" I hissed. Your species found FTL months ago, and now you're telling them that you single-handedly defeated the Arxor? How will they conclude that primitives did that? Sarah crossed her arms. Tava is right. These Venel aren't ready for the facts. Remember what sort of reactions we get from normal people? The exchange programs? Arthur? Noah sighed, throwing his hands in the air. Maybe we should get the truth over with instead of dodging their questions and locking them up. Glim was an exterminator. Any deceit will make him double down on his pre-existing beliefs. Hold your horses. I know they're going to find out eventually, but they've been here 2 days. You'd be compromising the identity of all of our people. Glim and Hyacea are strong-willed. We could break it to them in pieces. They deserve to know who Venel Prime's closest ally really is. And who is that? A voice squeaked behind us. Who are you really? The Terrans swiveled around to face Hyacea, an instinctive reaction. Their uncanny tendency to look right at a target tipped off the historian. It was a sign of narrow vision to snap around a full 90 degrees. I could see fear flash in her eyes. She had realized the truth, or at least part of it. Hyacea backed away, tail drooping between her legs. Sarah raised her hands and took a careful step forward. The female Venel shrieked before bolting down the hallway. I could hear her nails scrabbling on the tile as she slipped in haste to get away. The sounds of crying were audible too, amidst the screams. The poor thing just realized she hugged a predator. Oh dear. I positioned myself in Noah's path, stopping him from following. Don't chase her. You're just going to make it worse. The ambassador cursed. What do we do? We can't just sit around. She's going to start a panic. I'll notify the Venel doctors and get someone to calm her down. We should check on Glim now. He must have heard the commotion. Yeah, Hyacea wasn't exactly subtle, Sarah said. Come on, Noah. We don't need both our patients freaking out. The humans raced back to the hospital room. Sarah gasped with horror, and Noah's breathing accelerated to a panic pace. Catching up to the primates, I saw that both beds were empty. Hyacea was obviously long gone, so our goal was to minimize the damage. Glim was nowhere to be found either, though. The Terran astronauts started scouring the room, since we hadn't seen the exterminator exit. They crawled on the floor, searching under the beds first. Under different circumstances, it would have been amusing to see a human wriggle under tight spaces. But at the moment, my sole thought was locating our Venel charges. My gaze landed on the walls and the ceiling, browsing for any clues. A food cart had been moved right under an air duct. The grate was pried open too. A clump of grey hair floated down onto my face, and I shouted for the human's attention. Glim must have used this passage to mount an escape. Sarah whistled. Dang, we got a little Houdini here. If he wasn't an exterminator, I'd be impressed. The predators couldn't fit into the crawl space, and I wasn't planning to go in there myself. We must operate under the assumption that Glim fled the premises. There was no telling where he would go, and family were his only known associates. Perhaps we should start with relatives' residences, or extermination offices. We have to find Glim. He's a danger to himself and any human he comes across, I said. The world has changed since he's been gone. Noah ripped his mask off. This is a fucking disaster. It wasn't supposed to go like this. Let's keep our heads. What's done is done, Sarah offered. Tava, do you want us to call in a UN manhunt? Manhunt? I thought you didn't hunt sapients. It's an expression. For a search party to capture a deviant. I see. If you think it will bring him in safely, do it. I can ask the public for help too. Noah sighed. That's a good idea. We'll do what we can. I'm sorry. The two predators wandered off to make calls, while I fiddled with my holopad. The hospital lockdown should have been tighter, but I never intended to imprison these people. They were supposed to be eased back into the citizenry and learn the truth gradually. Human volunteers are signed on to give each rescue proper care, rather than to complicate matters. Perhaps their involvement was unwise, but we couldn't handle the cattle influx alone. It seemed like a good idea to give the predators a worthy cause. Most Terran refugees wanted something noble to occupy their day. The predators needed to track Glim and Hyacea down and bring them around to our side. Hopefully, in time, both Venla would understand the humans were here to help.